Hello, stitching friends. This is Susan Stanley Stitch in Time, and this is my Flosstube episode 15. Yeah, it's March 2020, and welcome. If you're new here, thank you for popping in, and if you're a subscriber and you've coming back, thank you so much for that as well. I hope you enjoy this episode and like and subscribe. And join me in the future. I have some fun things planned for this year. And I'd be thrilled if you would join me. So this has been an interesting year for me so far. And I'll just give you a teeny bit of life update without going into too much. Of course, our world is in upheaval. We've got issues in Ukraine. A war has broken out, and I don't want to go into a ton of that, and I know everyone's hearts are breaking, and there's tons of great things going on, stitch-alongs and whatnot. And I'm here to take you away from that world a little bit and give you a little break, I hope. So I couldn't not mention it, but I don't want to dwell on it. And I also want to mention things that have been going on in my own personal life. I haven't seen you for a couple months now. And in that meantime, I had a torn macula in my left eye. If you notice, my eye is kind of black and red. It's so much better than it was. I had to have eye surgery. And the night before I had eye surgery, my father passed away. So it has been some kind of a roller coaster. That's just life. It never goes the way we think it's going to. And thank goodness we have our stitching to help us escape and go into a place of peace, even if it's just for a short time. So I hope you'll join me today to find a little moment of peace and a little bit of joy in fiber. And yeah, let's get going. I have received some amazing stitchy kindness this month, and I'm not going to share all of that with you today because it's been quite a while since I've made a video. I think it's been 2 months, and that's too long. But I just can't thank you enough for those of you who noticed I hadn't been around, who've reached out to message and encourage, just checking in type of thing, who've sent me fabulous emails with resources, people have sent me, gifts. I'm not doing this for any of that. I just love the connection, and I love having discussions about quilting and stitching, and anything from the 19th century seems to really make me happy. I really love the textiles from that time period. I don't love everything that happened during that time period, make that very clear, but the textiles I think are beautiful, and they just really speak to me. So I like to talk about that on my channel, and notions and things from that era as well. So here we go. This episode I'm calling To Hem Stitch or Not to Hem Stitch, and also Flossiversary #1, because it is my 1-year Flossiversary. I've been doing these videos for a year now. I almost can't believe it myself, and I'm thrilled that I've stuck with it that long, and I am beyond grateful for the connections, like everybody says, and I mentioned a minute ago, with all of you. It's just truly amazing. In the last month, I was very honored to be asked by Becca of SamBrie Stitches to be interviewed, interview with a Floss Tuber, and it's her, let's see, special edition episode 78. Becca is a delight. She's so easy to communicate with. We had such a fun time, and all of her interviews with Floss Tubers are wonderful, and I encourage you to check them out. Now, I'm secretly thinking that she needs to start interviewing some of the Instagrammers out there who are amazing and kind of getting away without having to be on the front page of whatever. But anyway, it's just a really neat way to get to know people a little bit better. And we come to this stitching community from so many different backgrounds, but it's so amazing, the similarities. I mean, we really are, everybody always has some kind of a common thread that unites us. So anyway, I would definitely encourage you to check out, I'd love you to watch my episode that she filmed because it was just so fun, but I would love to encourage you to check out her channel. And her regular floss tubes are great, and her interviews are phenomenal. And I also thank you, those of you who watched my unframing video. That was just something I did off the top of my head, and I had a lot of people really enjoy that. So I would like to do a little more along those lines, and I'll talk to you about that later on in this episode. But I think my chief motivation in doing that was to encourage people to really document their work and keep some kind of a written record or video record of their stitching and why they stitched an item, what motivated them to start it, what drove them to finish it, how they changed it, you know, all those things. And recently I watched an episode of, I believe it was Quilt Alliance, the International Quilt Museum was putting on something about documenting quilts. And I thought, this is so, this also applies to our stitching or cross stitch. And they have a program, and it's called Go Tell It, and they are actually recording one person talking about one quilt for 3 minutes, and it's a quilt that they made. And I thought, why can't we do that as cross stitchers? One person, one sampler, one piece of cross stitch for 3 minutes for your own personal posterity, I guess. You could record it in writing, or you could do a little video archive. So just an idea. I thought that was kind of a neat thing, and I wanted to pass that along. So what have I been stitching? Well, of course, as soon as I found out that my father had passed away, the stitch that I'm doing in honor of him jumped right up to the top of the list. Now, I had just had eye surgery, so let me just say that I was holding the linen and threads in my hands, and there wasn't a whole lot of stitching going on, but there was just comfort in holding those fibers. So I didn't get a ton done, but, and I do plan to switch out some colors a little bit, but I definitely am going to make this was a focus piece, but now it's even more of a focus piece, because my dad was an amazing person, and I sure want to honor him. So I am stitching the old Scot by Hands Across the Sea. And her charts, of course, you all know. If you have them, and if you don't, I'll just reaffirm it. They're just beautiful and so easy to stitch from. I'm stitching it with the Averswa silks. I had to order some more. There's a lot of that red, and I decided, after being very inspired by Sara on Jane Says 8, to kind of bump up some of the colors and change them a tiny bit. And so I'm going to do that. I also received, since it's right here, I'm going to go ahead and show you. I received from a friend some beautiful floss bling with the old Scot images. So that was fun. So I'm stitching this on, I believe it's 36 count platinum. Yep, 36 count platinum. And I got all the way around the border. Oops. Let's see. There we go. I'm trying a different filming setting. I don't know if I love this filming setting, but here we go. So I love, the color's getting really washed out, I'm sorry. I love the richness of these colors, the red and the green. I just love it. I love the four-sided stitch. There's queen stitch, there's lots of satin stitch. It's gonna be really fun. I did start, Mama Loves You GB put out a chart. It's a free. I'll let you go to her site to get it, for honoring Queen Elizabeth's 70th year of reign. So I started that in the corner too. But anyway, I really love this stitch, and stopping and starting all these colors on the flowers for the border is not my favorite thing to do, but I don't know. And it's interesting too, the chart, if you notice on this green cable right here, oops, it's very uniform and consistent, but on this side, it's off. It's the distance away from the edge is off. And that's how it started. So I stitched it that way. Now it kind of bothers me, but I'm going to leave it. So that's something I kind of held on to and sort of stitched. I can't, like I said, I had eye surgery, and stitching was more just holding threads and being comforted by that. So, all right. Then I worked a ton on Elizabeth Isles and decided, and I actually did quite a bit of stitching. Elizabeth Isles is the stitch along in honor of Laura Duet, Maud and Mozart, and the second half of Brenda and the Cereal Starter, her birthday. And you know what? It's getting scrapped and started over. You don't need to do color conversions and mess around with stitching when one eye is completely unusable and you're in pain and you're not it was not a good time to be doing that. So that one's going to get a restart, which is fine. I thought a year ago there is no way I would ever do that. Oh yeah, I'm doing it. I'm starting it over. So I'm okay. The next thing I did a teeny tiny bit on was Mary Snow, and there's so many people who've already finished her, but you know, we just take what we can do and keep plodding along, and eventually it gets done. I am stitching her on the 25th of every month for the 25th day Sal. She's not a Christmas sampler, but she has Christmas colors, so I'm stitching her in honor on that day. So that'll keep it going in my rotation. And I am stitching Laura's birthday stitch, Elizabeth Isles, on the 1st of every month, because that's her birthday was on the 1st of January. So that'll keep it in my rotation all year. So here's little Miss Mary. Mary is, I'm using a Vera Soie on 40 count Lakeside, and this is Vintage Light Exemplar, and that rose tree, oops, sorry. Oh my gosh, that rose tree was so fun to stitch. I just loved it. I love, love, love it. Love everything about this. This will be framed, and it will stay out all year at my house. It's not going to be just for Christmas. I have a lot of I just love red and green, so it can stay in my world all year. It doesn't have to just be for holidays. And then let's see what else. Oh, I started, because I got so excited after watching Brenda and Laura's video and found out about other people who were starting this one. And I had the chart. And, you know, it's funny because I talked to friends when I got this chart and they were like, oh, yeah. Then after we saw the finished work on the video that Brenda and Laura made at the attic retreat that they went to, or the attic meetup that they went to, everyone was just dying for this sampler. And this is the GGR Bridget Power 1840. That's the antique. That's the original, what it looks like. It's such a unique, I mean, the flowers alone are just stunning. And you could just do that upper part. But, I mean, what an interesting piece of pottery or a vase that they represented at the bottom. It's just, it's so strange. And then the background is almost like a damask. It's like a tone on tone. It's just so interesting. Anyway, so this was an impulse start. Had no business starting it, but I did. I'm using, oh, I have the DMC, which, gorgeous colors. And I'm using Katie Strachan's gorgeous floss drops. Look at that, from the great floss drop trade. You must check out Katie Strachan Embroidery. If you have not, you will be so inspired by her workmanship. It's just amazing. So I just have a teeny weeny start. I'm doing this on Tabby Cat Sahara Sand. Gorgeous linen, absolutely gorgeous linen. And it is a little dark, but I like it. So let's see. Oh, gosh. Okay, there it is. Just teeny tiny. So this is that background that almost looks like damask or textured cloth fabric, and I kind of wanted it to look like that because down here on the sampler it has this rich bold red that's going to really stand out. So this will maybe look more, I don't know, I'll do a little more, and then if I decide this fabric's too dark, I'll restart it. But anyway, and this fabric is a delight to stitch on. It's wonderful. So that's all I did. The 40 count I did have a hard time with this last month because of my eye situation. I love the coverage of 40 count. I don't mind the looser coverage on 36 count. So I don't know. And then of course, you know, I've been working on the Dutch Beauty, and so I did get a little bit more of that done. So the Dutch Beauty is being stitched by so many people right now. It's a chart that's available by Perman. Sorry about the glare there. There, that's better. And I just saw this morning that Jacob released a new Dutch sampler, and it's so, I'm gonna have to get it, even though it has almost all of these motifs in it. I think it would be such an awesome companion piece, and it's gorgeous. It has a deer in the center that's red. So I'm going to print that and download it, and we'll talk about it in a future episode. But so my Dutch Beauty I am also doing on doing with DMC. And let me show you my progress. This is no joke. This is a massive piece of linen. There's my progress. I'm on to page 4. I'm trying to do a page a month. It's much more washed out in the picture than it is in, it's a very, very muted sampler. But it's much more washed out. My lighting is not great in here today. This one has been really comforting to stitch because there's a little bit of leeway. The motifs are, it's packed. It's packed with motifs, but they're forgiving. So the arch, like I have a little mistake in the arch right here, and it worked out. I could work around it. The fabric I'm using is Mayflower by Fox and Rabbit, 36 count. It's got a nice hand, and the holes are super easy to see. So with my eye situation, this was my go-to stitch. This was the thing I wanted to hold on to, and I really literally did spend days where I would hold this in my lap and have my needle threaded and take a few stitches and watch Flosstube and really not get anything done, but somehow that was really comforting. It was so cute though. My husband walked in and he goes, "Oh, that's really pretty. That's beautiful what you're working on." And he was looking at it, and then he was looking at the chart. He said, "Oh, so are you right here?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You've just done that much then, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You have all that left to do?" I said, "Yep." You should know me by now. I don't take on, quick, easy, get it done tonight projects, honey. You know that. So anyway, I just thought that was funny. What is the psychology behind these long-term projects and this need to do things that are excessively take forever? I don't know. It really is like a marathon. It really is. I mean, I haven't been a runner for years, but it's kind of the same mental thing that goes on where you just reach a point where you're just so sick of it and you want to stop, and then you keep going. And anyway, and then the last thing I posted on Instagram is Elizabeth Addlesey. This is a chart from Becca, HedgerowStitching. I stitched her and hem stitched her, and I am going to, so she was really fun. If you want to download, you can download her from HedgerowStitching website. I stitched her in silk on Picture This Plus Ren 40 count, and I used I used Gloriana silks, and she was really fun. And this was for the Stupid Tumor Sal, also for Rebecca, because I think Rebecca's wonderful. So I wanted to support both of those things. So when I posted this on Instagram, I had, well, first it was Rose Heck, and Rose said, "I know how to hem stitch, but could you do a demo? I want to see how you do it." I'm like, oh, I'm sure she has a way better technique than me. And then more and more people were saying, "Yes, please show us how to hem stitch." I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not the person. Anyway, so after so many people saying, "Could you just show us how," I said, "I can show you how I did this one." And that doesn't mean I would do another one the same way as I did this one. And it certainly doesn't mean I'm the go-to expert at all. Or I'm sure there's people out there that have way more information on how to do it than me. But I did. So peer pressure, right? I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to hem stitch it. Why don't I try to video my process? And then, if I can make sense of the video, I'll share it with you. You can see how I did it. So in the middle, so as I'm videotaping myself hem stitching, which was really funny, I did message Katie Strachan at one point and say, "How do you do your beautiful professional tutorials? Because I am like a bull in a china shop. I'm knocking my camera, I'm bumping my project, I'm talking, and my hands are out of the range of the camera, and so it's just like a blank table that you're looking at." And then in the middle of the video, a weather event happened, which I'm going to leave it in the video. I'm going to edit that video and post it after this. I just thought, well, it's real life. So it's definitely not a professional video. It's hopefully going to show you a way to hem stitch. And there are, you know, lots of options. And there are a lot of people who are way more experienced and professional and probably know a whole lot more about it than me. But I'm going to post it and be nice. If it helps you, great. I do want to hem stitch something before I start stitching on it as well and make a wider. I did make a wider border. I wanted this to be petite and delicate, just like the sampler. It's just so tiny, and I had planned on this being wider, and once I got to it, I just went, no, it's just too delicate. It needs to be a teeny tiny little edge. So I will do another video at some point with a wider edge. It's a little bit easier to see what's actually happening, and you can see the difference between what I did on this one and the next one, and maybe make some decisions, and maybe you'll want to finish something in that way as well. Now, as a result of all that Instagram posting and people asking for, could you show us how you hem stitch it? I also had people say, what do you do with hem stitched samplers? Like, why would you, how do you display them? Are they more like just a doily or a coverlet or something you just leave out? What do you do with them? So I went around my house and took little videos of some of the antique samplers that I have and how they are displayed, how they are hem stitched and how they are displayed. And then I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one. So the ones I have, some of them are out, some of them are, well, you'll see. I'm going to pop that in here. I'll let you watch that. So as far as displaying your hem stitched pieces, I got this idea from NeedleworkPress, Vicki Jeanette. If you go to her Instagram and scroll through some of her pictures, her home is a plethora of this gorgeousness. So this is an antique shaving stand. So a gentleman would have his soap and shaver. It's from the 1900s, and comb, brush, suit, whatever was used to get lint off your suit. But it also has this really handy towel rack. And so some of my samplers that have the hem stitch that I just haven't had framed yet, or I just enjoy them like this. And I feel safe with this one on the bottom because it's got the paper, but if it didn't have the paper, I would put a piece of muslin or batting or something to wrap the wood, because that stain on that wood can absorb into your linen and actually really discolor your sampler. So don't ever put samplers, quilts, any cloth on wood without something protective in between. But you can see this has the exact same bulky cornered finish. That one does too. This one looks like it may have one drawn thread. But then of course that squared off finish. And I'm sure that was just easier for the girls. Way easier than mitering. Isn't that beautiful? That's the back. Ooh. This one's nice. So if you're planning to frame your hem-stitched piece, if it's antique or new, I have had a few antiques framed in this manner, and what the framer will do, if they know about antique textiles, and you can see that little hem stitch there, at least in my experience, they actually stitch the sampler onto the acid-free mat board all the way around. And I usually pick a color very close to the linen, and I just have them frame it pretty tight. Now, I'm sure there's other ways of doing this. This is just what I like. You can see that bulky corner again. You can't even see the evidence of the hem stitch, really. It's been hidden in there. That's another option. I like to display some of my antique samplers with my antique sewing notions, and of course I love transferware, so they look great in a tray, they look great draped on a little cabinet. They do get dusty, but that's just life with textiles. So that's another way you can display your work or your antiques. It's a little bit dark in here, but I wanted to show you this finish. It's actually been hem stitched and then blanket stitched. So you can see that bulky corner of the hem stitching, and then they've gone back, and this I believe was done in wool, and blanket stitched it all the way around. And I just have this draped over my thread cabinet in my sewing room, and it's protected from light and unfortunately not from dust. That's just part of life, but I try to keep things clean. All right, so you can see there's a lot of options for displaying them in your home. And I also thought, you know, this would be darling on a horn book. It might look really neat on the top of a box. Of course, it could be framed. It could just be placed in a dough bowl with things around it. It could be clipped onto, you know, some kind of a like office board. So, I mean, there's lots of options. If you want to protect the fibers, though, I'm definitely framing is the way to go. You know, so I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do with this. But that was really fun, and that led me down a whole different path. I did want to mention that somebody shared a really great comment from my last video, and you know, it's been a while, and I apologize. I think a month is just long enough. If you go past a month, if I go past a month, then I forget what I did the month before. I would love to post every 2 weeks, but you should see the ordeal I go through. My technology setup is not the best, and I'm working on that. And I definitely, if I do any more tutorials, I'm definitely planning on investing in some better technology setup so that the lighting's good and that you can really see what I'm doing. But so last month, I guess this was when I unveiled when I took the sampler out of the frame, I had a really neat comment from a lady, and I really wanted to share it. I've had so many great comments, but this one I thought was definitely worth bringing to your attention. It was from 1856 Brickhouse, and it's on the Flosstube in the comments below. And she said, this was very interesting. It reminded me of a blog post Brenda Gervais did years ago. She wrote that sometimes tiny embroidered messages could be discovered inside a pocket watch, most likely to their beloved, the owner of the watch. My father was an antique dealer specializing in clocks and pocket watches. I asked him if he had ever found one, but he said no. What an amazing discovery that would be. I would love to discover one someday. Oh man, would I ever. I mean, to me, those little secret messages are little windows to the past. So thank you so much for sharing that comment. Thank you for everybody for your comments, but I just thought that was particularly intriguing and interesting and really motivating. Like, whatever I do with this, having some kind of a little message tucked in to whatever, I think talking about it would be super fun. So, all right. So that's it on my cross stitch journey for this month. I want to share a little bit about my quilting, and then I have a giveaway for my Flossiversary. So what have I been up to in my quilting life? I had mentioned, I think in January, that I was involved in a quilt block exchange with some friends, and we exchanged blocks, and I'm going to pop a little video in here of the blocks that I made to send out. So you can take a I wanted to show you the Carolina Lily blocks before I mailed them off to their respective homes. This, I mentioned earlier, was an exchange I did with some friends who live in another state. And the blocks come out of this book. We all love reproduction quilts. And it's the Carolina Lily block. And there's different settings you can do. You can create your own setting. You can do whatever you want with the blocks. And so what we did was we each picked our color palette, and then we stitched the blocks for each other based on the desired color palette. So this color palette, somebody picked madder colors, which I haven't really talked a lot about that, but it is a dye that was used in the 1800s. It's from a plant called the madder plant. It's a root, and it's actually the same dye that's used for this super bright red too. But anyway, and then there's the indigo, and this block was from that time period, and I'll talk about that too. Carolina Lily. You see cross stitch motifs that are kind of similar. Anyway, then there were people who wanted browns, and that was, you know, of course, a classic. And then I wanted, and several of us wanted, all red and green. And so here are the blocks. It's not a super hard block. It's a lot of half square triangles and setting triangles. It's just, you know, quite a few pieces, so it takes time. And I just assembly lined them and, you know, picked the fabrics one day. Actually, you know, I procrastinated. I should have had this done a long time ago, but you have a year to complete it. So there they are. Look at that. All right, so those are the blocks I sent out. Everybody kind of had their special order. This block is called the Carolina Lily, and I will talk about the history of that at some point. I'm going to start putting this quilt together. So as I get a little farther along with that, I'll talk to you about it. But these are some of the blocks I got back. My preferred colorway was red and green. I wanted this to be, well, I told you I love red and green, and I wanted this to be kind of a seasonal, but it'll stay out all year quilt that I had in my house. So here are some of the gorgeous blocks that I got back. And what I love about doing an exchange, and I have some ideas. I did have some people reach out and say, oh, could we do an exchange? You know, can I get in on an exchange? I kind of thought, gosh, you know, how could, there's so many quilters and Flosstube watchers and stitchers out there who would love to do something like that. So my wheels started turning. I thought, is there any way to do this and do it kind of like the Great Floss Drop Exchange? Oh, I don't know. You know, leave me a comment below if you think you'd be interested, or if you think that's even something doable. I have some ideas, and I need to talk to her. It was, I think it was a great idea, and it would be fabulous. I think, as you can see, what's so fun about doing an exchange is that I have a lot of fabric, but shockingly, there are blocks in here with fabrics that I've never even seen before and I don't have. So the really fun thing about an exchange, number one, is you have a little piece of that person in your collection and in your project, but also you have such a variety of fabrics. And we could, if I did figure out a way to do it for this community, we could make it very simple. It could be a very simple block that's exchanged so that everyone can participate, even a brand new quilter. Anyway, so, and then there's a whole stack more. So that's just been super fun. The quilt's going to be huge. I'm considering doing a sashing with a border. I want to set these on point. So this is called on point. This is called square. I want to set them on point, and I'm looking at antique quilts to get an inspiration. And so that's one thing that's been going on in my quilt world, and that's been super fun. And that was really uplifting and fun to get when I was I haven't been able, my depth perception has been off. And so I haven't used my sewing machine. I just drove for the first time yesterday, and it was a little weird, and the lights in the grocery store were making my head go, woo! But it's getting better. The vision's restoring. Every day it's a little bit better, and I'm just afraid that if I go on the sewing machine and sew, I'm going to think I'm sewing a 1/4 of an inch seam, and it's like something crazy. So the other thing that I really want to get back to is this quilt that I'm reproducing. It's called the Bird of Paradise quilt. It's called the Civil War Bride. It's an antique quilt that's in the American Folk Art Museum. And it has some history behind it and has some information behind it. It was found in New York, I believe. And it was made during the time of the war, over that time span. I just love the colors and the motifs. It's sad, that it was during that hard time, but I know, again, we find comfort in stitching during hard times. And so the person who stitched this found comfort. There is a cutout in paper of the groom, but there's no block of the groom, so it's thought that possibly he passed in the war. We don't know. There's a lot we don't know, but to me, it speaks of life and things that are growing and happy birds and fruit and plenty. And anyway, so I like the quilt, even though there's some sadness behind it. And so my next block it's just covered with these skinny little vines and strawberries with these super pointy little caps. And there are people out there who watch me, and hello to all of you who have finished this quilt, and I'm so impressed and encouraged when I see this quilt finished, because it's quite a journey. It's not anything that gets done quickly, but I'm just plodding along. So all I did this last month was I started prepping the stems, and I would like to do a tutorial on stems, one way to do stems, because there is a technique for doing super skinny stems that I think anyone interested in applique would really benefit from knowing. Even the Blackbird Designs projects that have a little bit wider stems can be done this way. Basically involves cutting a bias strip and folding one side in and pressing it. And once it's pressed, and what I do is I use a light box and I just do really, really soft pencil lines for placement. And so all the stems, it's really like, that's pretty ugly right now, but all the stems have to be put down first. So I'm working on that part. That's not exactly fun, but has to be done. So you start stitching one side of, you start stitching that folded side, and you stitch that down. And once that's stitched under there, you can trim this back to whatever width you want. You can make it as wide or as narrow as you'd like. And so here is one of them stitched, and I could get that super narrow by using that technique. And if I can figure out all the technology required to make a really good tutorial, I would love to share this technique with you, because I think it'll encourage you and it will make you realize that some of these tiny pieces aren't as hard as they might seem to be. So anyway, so I started working on that. I got the colors picked for the strawberries. I'm doing, I'm going to do some red strawberries, some pink. So I'm going to do a variety of colors on the strawberries. So yeah, so that's what I've been up to. So, you know, it's been a weird time, but it's good to be back with you, and I'm looking forward to the next stage, the next season, and now I have a giveaway. So 2 videos ago, well, I guess it was in January, I did a giveaway, and there are 2 unclaimed prizes. So I have this Sara Comfort. The random comment picker picked Kathy Kerr, and I have not heard from Kathy yet, and I've messaged her and I have not heard back. So Kathy, please get in touch with me. I would love to give this to you. If I don't hear from you next time, you and this other person, I'm going to redraw so that I can share this with other folks. The other one was this gorgeous chart that I plan to stitch. I accidentally on purpose bought 2 because I love it so much. And this was picked, the random comment picker picked Rebecca Moore. And so Rebecca, get in touch with me. I would love to give this to you. And now I want to talk about my Flossiversary. Again, you know, I've said it over and over, and you know, it's just been a wonderful year. So thank you for making this such a happy year in this community. It's just been a joy. I have a box that I'm going to fill with fabric, linen, notions, and goodies for stitchers. And it will be quilting goodies and cross-stitch goodies. So if you aren't interested in the quilting goodies, maybe you want to participate and win the box, you can share them with a friend, or maybe you can start quilting. I would love to see that. So this is open to anybody. I will mail this anywhere. I would love to share the love and the joy that I've received this year. So this box is not very pretty, but it's going to be packed full, and I'm not going to show you what's in there because I want it to be a surprise for whoever gets it. But needless to say, there's a little bit of linen, there's a little bit of bling, there's, you know, there's things. So if you're interested in participating and would like to be the recipient of this Flossiversary gift, please make a comment below. Please subscribe. Do not say gift or giveaway or win or any of that. Make sure you're over 18 so I can get your email and your address. And I want you to use the word anniversary in your comment. And that's what the random comment picker will do, its magic and pick the person to win. So next month I have something fun that I'm cooking up with, well, you'll just have to wait and see, but I think it's going to be really fun and I'm excited about it. And I hope you'll join me again to find out what it is. And I would love you to watch the tutorial and be nice and tell me what you think. I know I need to improve. Don't worry. It's a given. Yeah. So if you would like tutorials, if I can up my game and be a little bit more professional, if you want that information, let me know. I love sharing this with people, and I want this craft. I want quilting and stitching to continue well beyond my years, and so I love to make sure that happens by passing information on. So, all right. It's been so long and it's been so great to be back, and I will see you next time. And in the meantime, make sure you make time for stitching. Bye, friends.